welcome to you, Paralympic Winter Games fans. We are back at the magnificent Cortina Curling Olympic Stadium. It is surrounded by the majestic figure of the Dolomites. You can get all your Paralympic souvenirs there at the official store at the venue, and the fans are arriving for a real battle of the giants today. We will be watching Team Sweden, and they will be up against Team Slovakia. That's how they've been doing so far. Having a decent run of it. We are in session 9. We have 10 teams. As you can see, 4 sheets, so we don't all play at once. Got both of these teams on 6 games played. Sweden on 4 wins, Slovakia on 3. And yeah, both teams just need to keep on winning. Typically the magic number is 6 wins. Will typically qualify you for semi-finals. The athletes being welcomed to the ice. These teams hugely experienced at Paralympic Winter Games. We will talk about that.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome the players who will compete in wheelchair curling mixed team round robin session 9.
Buongiorno, accogliamo I giocatori che si sfideranno nella nona sessione del girone a squadra.
There are the 2 teams we will be watching today.
On sheet A, Latvia versus Norway.
Team Sweden. They are wearing the dark uniforms. They are playing red stones. That's how they've been getting on so far. As you can see, it's very tight out there. Really close games. But they are on 4 wins.
Sulla pista B, Stati Uniti d'America contro Repubblica di Corea.
They will be up against Team Slovakia. They are wearing white uniforms, throwing yellow stones.
On sheet C, Sweden versus Slovakia.
Sulla pista C, Svezia contro Slovakia.
That's how they've been getting on. A little bit up and down. When they've won, they've won. And when they've lost, they've lost.
On sheet D, Great Britain versus People's Republic of China.
Still all to play for.
E sulla pista D,
Both teams can get to the magic 6.
Repubblica Popolare Cinese.
I have never seen a team not qualify for semi-finals if we get to 6 wins. Here's the current standings. So both teams very well poised. Sweden already in a top 4 position. They will just want to keep going. Slovakia just knocking on that door. A few more wins for them. And they could put themselves a place in semi-finals as well.
Buona fortuna e buon curling!
There is the Swedish coach, Peter Narup. There's a big name in curling. We'll talk about him as well. And here's the Slovakian bench. Daniela Matulova. She is the team coach for Team Slovakia today. Ice conditions looking nice. The ice crew is really working around the clock to keep conditions perfect. It is tough in the arena. The air currents are more difficult to manage. And the audience coming in and out, that can affect the humidity and the temperature and so on. But the ice has looked wonderful from up here. And it will be Christina Kiki Ulander starting us off this morning. That is a nice start from her. The familiar figure of Monika Kunkelova. She will begin for Slovakia. It is Slovakia who have hammer. You can see the little hammer graphic there on our screen. That means that they have last stone advantage here in this first end. They have the hammer. Full bat in curling. That's a decent start from her. Finding the house, the rings. And if you're at the club, before you play your club league game, you typically just toss a coin, heads or tails, and whoever wins heads or tails, they get last stone advantage in the first end. And that's a little bit random here at this level. And we want it to be a bit more deserved. So what happens is both teams, they have a short practice on this ice before their game this morning. And at the conclusion of the practice, they nominate 2 teammates, throw a stone towards the center. One throws clockwise handle towards the center, one throws anti-clockwise, and cumulatively, whichever team is closest to the center, they get last stone advantage in that first end. So today that was Slovakia. That's why they had the little hammer next to the Slovakian flag. And your last shot draw, as it's called. Those numbers, not only important for this game, it's not only important to get last stone in the first end here, but over the course of the competition, all of your last stone draws contribute to your total, which is the draw shot challenge. And if teams are tied at the end of the week, that can be a way of separating them, so it's well worth getting it right. So first throw of the game for Marcus Holm of Sweden. He began the competition as alternate, but it is a long way. We have 10 teams here in the 4-person event, and everyone plays everyone else, so 9 games out there. And I'm not surprised that several teams have been using their alternate player as well to spread the work around. And that is a nice throw from Marcus Holm. Slovakia also just mixing it up with their throwing order, and Karol Sandl in your picture there, he also started the competition as alternate. And Slovakia also just moving the constellation around a little bit, spreading the work, trying to maximize the effect. Quite what Sandl wanted, but what he has done is move that centre guard, and as I've said before, that is rarely a bad idea. If you have last stone, a centre guard really only helps your opposition, so he should be quite happy with that.
Du kan det här.
Rob!
Amen.
Bra satt!
Fan, inte samma fart på den här.
13-1!
Sweden,
Jättebra Macka!
they have really jumped out to a superstar this morning. Plenty of red stones there. We put the pressure on Slovakia immediately in this first end.
Bra Macka! Grymma Stena!
Let's think about our objectives here in this first end. You'll be getting used to this by now. Just the first end. No score yet. Slovakia with last stone advantage. They would love to put a couple of points on the board. Sweden without last stone. They don't need to take too many risks at this very early stage. They don't need to get points here in the first end. They simply want to prevent Slovakia from being able to get a good number of points, and that they are doing currently very effectively. So the front end, the first two players, they have set up the end very nicely for their teammates. First throw of this session 9 for Ronnie Persson. And same idea. You just see Sweden attacking that centre line, having red stones sprinkled around that centre line on the vertical in our picture. And what that does, it just makes Slovakia's life difficult. It means that there isn't a clear path for them to get to the centre and score points. First throw of this session for third thrower and skip of Slovakia, that is Radoslav Duric. He wants to make a bit of space. He's thrown that wide. That does not change the constellation, and danger building already in this first end for Slovakia. Good news is they have last stone.
Ligger vi 2? Garda. Vill du garda skjutningen? Ja. Ja.
Räcker där eller?
Ja, det tror jag.
Same drill then for Sweden.
Ja, men det tror jag.
Vi kan ta marginalen där va?
Bright start for Swedish fans. You can see there are two reds, one either side of the centre line. There's a red out front, blocking that path. Sweden being pretty effective here in this first end. Just finding the right weight. Get stones into the rings, into the house. And that's fine from Ronnie Persson. Sweden noting that Slovakia wanted to use that yellow in the front rings. Just putting a block there. They think they can get through that gap though. Same idea then for Radoslav Duric. Just taking a redirection. Oh, there's a little bonus for him though. Not quite making it through the gap. He's catching the very edge of one of those guards, but a happy little redirection. And whoop. And lucky you, Slovakia. That's a little gift here in this first end. Make the most of it. The curling gods tend to be rather fickle. You can't rely on the curling gods to give you opportunities. You need to take them when they come. Now, first throw of the game for the resplendent figure of Swedish skip Viljo Petersson-Dahl. Not intimidated at all by that little piece of luck handed to Slovakia. And he gets another red into play. It has slipped behind T-line. That means there's space for Slovakia to follow that red just played. But in terms of objectives in this first end, that is absolutely fine. Important is red stones towards that centre. Red stones blocking the path. First throw of the session for Slovakians' fourth thrower today. That's Adrian Durček. He's new to the Slovakian team. The Slovakian team, they've really been heavyweights in this game for a number of years now, for about the past 10 years at least. But Durček, he's new in the team, and what a successful debut he's been having here at Paralympic Winter Games. Definitely one of the smiliest players on the rink. He seems to be really enjoying his Paralympic Winter Games debut. He started the competition at second and now throwing fourth. But yeah, he needs to clear himself a space here. That's fine. He wasn't sure about that shot, but that's a good shot. What that's done is opened up the whole of the clockwise handle. That's the situation now. So I like that throw from Durček. You can see now, if the situation would stay the same, he has a great big space on the left side of the sheet that he could use to draw towards the centre. Elio Petersendal. He just wants to, he can't block everything, but he would just love to put a stone right in the way or get to the centre first. And he's done that beautifully. He has left the path open, but there are 1, 2, 3 reds currently scoring. Yeah, 3 reds hanging around that green 4-foot circle. So the path is open, but the pressure is on. Drawing against 3 stones, never easy. Big throw here for Adrian Durček. He really wants to have a solid throw here. He looks like he's done pretty well. Oh, is it going to overcurl though? It overcurls a little bit, but he's cancelled out 2 of them. But a super start though for Sweden. It's that red, I think, yes. They're agreed on that. It's that red. Going with the final rock for Sweden, and it is Sweden who steal a point. They get a point on the board, even though they don't have last stone. And it will be 1 red. And at this early stage, it is Sweden leading Slovakia 1-0.
Jag tror de som går rakande linjen är så pass mycket kortare som på garden, så vi minskar fan lite.
Du ska ha det i huvudet.
Ja, första lite.
Bra!
45.
Gott om tid.
Vilken är det? 3 då?
Solid start for the team from Sweden. Just putting a little bit too much pressure on Slovakia, and Sweden are rewarded with a stolen point. They lead Slovakia 1-0.
Kändes bra.
Bra, Kiki.
Kiki Ulander starting us off in the second end again.
Det där måste ju bli.
The hammer, we can see, is still next to a Slovakian flag.
Bra!
The way that works is whichever team got points in the previous end, it is the opposition who get hammer in the next end. So the hammer doesn't just take turns, it's not like that. You get last stone if you didn't score points in the previous end. So Slovakia started with hammer. It was Sweden who got points in the first end. So Slovakia, they still have the hammer here in the second end. But they're up against another fine shot from Kiki Ulander with her first throw in the second end. Same objective for Sweden. They don't have last stone advantage. They just want to prevent Slovakia scoring here. Don't give Slovakia opportunities to make a lot of points.
Vill du testa där?
Jag tar där.
And the most effective way, well, there are two effective ways
Har varit lite rakare på garn.
of preventing Slovakia scoring. The first way, which is not available for another couple of stones, is to simply remove Slovakian stones. No Slovakian stones equals no Slovakian points.
Okej.
But that yellow at the top of our screen,
Ja.
not allowed to remove that just now. It is protected by free guard zone for 5 stones. So that option not available yet. Therefore, the other way of preventing your opposition from scoring is to get there first. So if you put your stones in the centre, like Sweden is doing already,
15.
and then Kiki Ulander just throwing up a guard. It's overcrowded a little bit. That's a stone you could use later. That is the other way of preventing your opposition from scoring, is to get there first. So attack being the best form of defence. Slovakia then in the first end struggling a little bit to make good use of last stone advantage. Sweden really getting off to a super start, and Slovakia not really managing to get yellow stones into play, into scoring positions. And they will need to tighten up here in the second end. When that's not it from Monika Kunkelova. She wanted to use that red stone, just bump up against it, maybe roll to the side and behind cover. Yeah, she wanted to connect with that red and then roll to the left of our screen. And that's unusual. Monika Kunkelova been part of this team for at least 10 years now. And she's having an uncharacteristic couple of loose throws there at the beginning of the game.
Bra, Mackan. Sätter den på fast.
Marcus Holm then.
Får se om det är mycket med 5, men det märker vi.
Same kind of shots from the Swedish team being asked.
13-9.
13-9.
We just get to the centre first. Then if Slovakia wants to score anything, at some point they have to do something about those reds. This is really excellent work from Sweden. They're just keeping it simple. Neither team needs to take risks at the moment. We're very early in the game. We are in the second end out of 8. That's more like it for Slovakia. Karol Jandl coming in at second. And that's a nice throw from him. They now have a yellow. in the front ring, in the blue one. That's the 12-foot circle. And not so easy to remove that yellow. If you get your angle wrong, it's just going to squirt straight back onto the red. And that's why that's a nice throw from second thrower Shandel. Both of these teams have a really sparkling record at this level in wheelchair curling. We're used to seeing Sweden and Swedish teams. We are very used to seeing them at this highest level. Sweden's so successful in all disciplines of curling over the years. And this team, they went all the way to the silver medal last time in 2022 in Beijing. Of course, they would love to get one better. Sweden have played at every edition of Paralympic Winter Games since wheelchair curling was introduced back in 2006. It was a different team back then. Well, they won bronze medals at the first two Paralympic Winter Games, 2006, 2010. Vicky Ulander, she joined the team in 2014. They finished 7th. And then they have been in the constellation we see today. Really since then, they finished 10th in 2018 and going all the way to silver in 2022. They will definitely be looking for another podium finish, and wouldn't they love to go one better this time? And Slovakia, we're less used to hearing about Slovakian teams, their men's and women's team. Still developing. But the Slovakian wheelchair team, they have really been one of the top teams in this discipline for many years now. They finished second in the round-robin stage last time in 2022. And they've just lost out in the semi-final, finishing 4th overall. They have finished very well in World Championships as well. Most recent World Championships, they finished 7th in 2024 and 4th in 2025. Interestingly, the Slovakian team finished 4th a number of times at Paralympic and world level. They are still waiting for a first podium finish, a first medal. And that is surely their aim for this week here in Cortina. Bags of experience then out on the ice. But it is Sweden who have made the brighter start. And Slovakia, they just need to tighten up their shots a bit. They're not quite playing as consistently as Sweden, and they're not managing to make chances for themselves to score at the moment. That's more like it.
Awesome.
That does spin a red into the rings there, but that's okay. Important is that it removes 2 guards, so 2 stones that were blocking access to the rings. It's removed 2 of those, so they won't mind too much that red stone spun into the house. It's a bit unlucky. But first things first, we needed to create some space, and we've done that.
Bra. Men slå gott där.
Okej.
Jag tror att det blir bra. Den glider på.
Kommer nu. 15-1! Bra Ronny!
Grymt spel.
Another guard then for Sweden. Their life quite simple in these first two ends. Let's just keep playing towards the centre. Keep blocking the path for Slovakia. I'm not sure if I like this call. I think we need to keep on doing something about the centre. Yeah, that was the risk. The double takeout was there. If you got the angle correct, you could have removed both of those reds with that one throw. But the risk is, if you don't, and you just get one of them, yeah, you can see that yellow just scooting past the red towards the centre there. But that was the risk. Now you still have a red in the centre and you have a guard in the centre. So I think the wiser choice was to keep trying to make a path towards the centre there. I think your better option at that stage was to remove the guards just thrown by Sweden. Sweden really just getting a whole heap of target practice in here. Slovakia struggling to build anything. So on the one hand, that is a lovely shot from Viljo Petersen Dahl. On the other hand, it does leave a bit of a target. That red in the centre was pretty safe. There's not much around it and stones out front, but now there's that little red stone right next to it. So on its own, a very nice shot. In the context of the end, not quite what he wanted. Now, as we said, curling gods can be fickle. They don't offer up chances very often. Need to make the most of this here, Slovakia. They're putting too much pressure at the moment, Slovakia. They're giving their fourth thrower here. Adrian Durček, they're giving him too much of a challenge. As I said, I don't mind that actually. Now at least we have a path to the centre.
Eller dra runt en tid. Han kommer ju slå på sin. Gadar vi så kommer ju han slå på våran igen. Förstått det va?
Okej, dra en till. Vill du ha på 5 där?
Ja.
Vad har vi för marginal?
Hellre kortspel för lag. Men vi har ju riktigt på den där också.
Ja, precis. Vad har vi in då? Har vi 13 in eller 13-5?
Ja, 13 var fint där.
Ja. Kom igen, den har vi. Hela vägen.
Kom igen, Viljo.
Ute! Bra!
Same idea for Viljo Petersen Dahl. He may just want to replace that guard out front and block the path, or sometimes the best guard is, yeah, just bung another shot into the rings there. Very difficult to get rid of all three of these reds. That's a fine shot from the Swedish skipper. And Sweden really putting Slovakia under pressure here. Slovakia need to steady the ship pretty quickly. We're only in the second end out of 8. Yeah, Slovakia have really been in trouble in the first and second ends. They need to find some consistency pretty quickly if this game is not to get away from them.
Hombre.
And that's a very excellent attempt there from Adrian Jurček. Again, facing 3 Swedish counters, just like he was in the first end. So not quite perfect, but a very excellent save. Yeah, he's not fully happy with it, but losing 1 point, not the end of the world. Losing 3 points, that would be quite a big deal. So after 2 ends then, it is another stolen point to Sweden. They lead Slovakia 2-0.
Han har jagat mot 3 nu 2 omgångar på raken.
Still early days in session 9 of 12 sessions in the 4-person wheelchair curling format, but it truly is Sweden who have jumped out to the better start here in our featured game. We were watching last time silver medalists from Beijing 2022. That is Team Sweden. And they are up against a team that finished second in the round robin, but 4th overall in Beijing. That's the team from Slovakia. And both of these teams will know each other. They will know the style of play inside and out. They've played each other numerous times. That's another solid start from Kiki Ulander. Sweden in a very comfortable position. They are plus 2 points. They don't need to take risks. They don't need to go for difficult shots here. Far from panic stations for Slovakia. A long way to go yet. But Slovakia, they need to find that consistency, even just for the confidence. They need to start finding some consistency. Is that stone going to make it? Oh. Someone should go and check that. All of the stone has to be over all of the line. Oh, everyone going to have a look at that. Yeah, if you really can't decide, you can ask the official.
Okay.
But both teams happy. It looks like it is in play. Just making it over the line. Oh, you can just about see a millimetre of white between the green line and the stone. Oh, and in fact, here is the hog line measure. That is to check, is this stone over the line? Yes, no.
In. Okay. Yeah.
If no, if not all of the stone was over all of the line, they would take it out of play. But everyone happy, yep, it just sneaked itself over. I think that's the first time we've seen that particular measuring device. We have all kinds of measuring devices here in curling. That's one of them. Is all of the stone over all of the line? We've seen a couple of times. The most usual measuring device, that's if 2 stones, a red and a yellow, 2 stones. We can't tell the difference between which is closer to the centre, just using the eyes. So we ask for a measure, and then that's a big metal arm that spins round. There's a little pin that drops down and touches the stone, tells us which one's closer. There is another measuring device called the 6-foot measure. Curling invented hundreds of years ago, long before the metric system. And there is another measure. Where that's if we need to decide if a stone is in or out of the house. Is it touching the rings at all? And so the radius of that widest ring, the blue one, is 6 feet. And we have a 6-foot metal arm that spins round to tell us, is a stone touching the rings, yes or no? You can also use that to ask if a stone is in free guard zone, yes, no. So then you use it sort of the opposite way around. You want to establish that the stone is not touching the rings. You can do that as well. All kinds of devices to make sure we know precisely where the stones are. But I can tell you precisely where Sweden's stones are this minute, and it is again Sweden off to a bright start. Kiki Ulander, been in this team the longest. Her first Paralympic Winter Games was 2014. And the rest of this team coming together after that. Monika Kunkelova just not finding her game this morning, and she really needs to start getting some shots into play. The setup for Slovakia is not too bad. What we saw Monika Kunkelova do was just use her own stone, and we call that a split, so just send the two stones sideways. And we call those corner guards. They're guarding the more towards the corner of the sheet, not the centre. And if Slovakia could get a stone or two in behind those guards, that would finally be an effective setup. So there we are. That's more like it. Now that yellow, that represents danger for Sweden. You can see Lilio Petersendal immediately going to have a look at that stone just thrown by Karol Jandl. Here it comes again. And yeah, just a little roll off to the side there. That's exactly what Slovakia need. So you can see maybe 3/4 of that yellow. But that yellow representing danger to Sweden. Slovakia, they would love to just take the game, or they would love if they can persuade Sweden to play the game away from the centre. That's why it's good to have those guards to the sides. If Slovakia can take the game towards the sides of the sheet rather than the centre, then it is Slovakia who may have a chance to play towards the centre later on. Oh no. This is exactly what you didn't need, Slovakia, yet. And again, just a lack of consistency, things starting to go wrong for Slovakia here in the third end. And we haven't seen too many loose shots from Sweden. In fact, I'm not sure we've seen any yet. Sweden's life pretty easy here in the third end.
Tight, va?
Ja, lite tajtare. Men lite bra där.
15-3, bra Ronny!
Ronnie Persson really just blocking access to that whole side of the sheet now, forcing Slovakia to go around the other way. Also a talented sit skier, Ronnie Persson. But switching over to hurling about 10 years ago. Slovakia then still not finding a way to build points, to really use that last stone advantage, get points in play, make Sweden do the work, give them the difficult shots. And that is a fine throw from third thrower and Slovakian skip Radoslav Duriš. But they're really up against it out there, Slovakia. They are responding to Sweden rather than the other way around. What they want to do is set up situations that ask the question of Sweden. Try to get a miss from the Swedish team, and that's when you can start building some extra points. But it's mainly the other way around just now. It's Sweden who are setting up and forcing Slovakia into being on the back foot a little bit. It's maybe a half shot though from Ronnie Persson. Doesn't quite find the centre.
Jag får en känsla att den där...
Den kan vara rak den där.
Ja, jag känner så.
I think Duriš,
Trošku pomalu si pôjdeme.
yeah, you can definitely see that red now. Maybe not all of it, but certainly most of it. Need to change the momentum a bit here, Slovakia. They have had the hammer since the first end, but really just struggling to set up an end to score and kind of summing up Slovakia's experience at the moment. He does move the red out of the way. But yeah, they're not doing enough with their stones at the moment, Slovakia. Much better setup for red here.
Hela vägen.
Inne, bra! Lite där.
Perfect weight from the Swedish skipper, but just over curling a little bit again. There is still access to that red. That has been temptingly sitting there most of the end. That's the view from the throwing end. That's what Adrian Durček will be able to see. So yeah, you can't see all of that red. You can see more than half. So he doesn't want to throw too much weight at this. Otherwise his own stone will just roll out as well. So he does want to move that red, but very important is that his own yellow hangs around as well. It has sneaked past. That's more like it. That is a lovely throw. And finally, Slovakia in a more positive position. Ooh, that held its breath, getting around that front guard. And that was exactly the right kind of shot. Not too heavy. He didn't push it too hard because it was so important that that yellow hangs around. And now finally asking a question of Sweden. Nothing to do with that yellow. Very difficult to get to it at all. You would have to go all the way around the outside. And that man in your picture, Peter Sandal, he has played a whole bunch of shots towards the centre already in this game, so he will feel confident to make this call. And he's done it again. That stone just grabbing the curl at the end, out-counting that yellow and forcing Slovakia to make a better draw. They are in winning mood, the Swedes. I would love to go one better than the silver medal they got last time in Beijing. They haven't won all their games. They sure are in good form. 0-4 wins at the moment. We have 10 teams in the round robin. Everyone plays everyone else, so 9 games each. And typically, the magic number is 6 wins. I have never seen a team in a 10-team round robin. I have never seen a team with 6 wins fail to qualify. Sometimes you can qualify even with 5 wins, depends on how the other results go. This stone needs to stop. The line was perfect, but he's just overthrown that. And Sweden starting to sneak off a little bit in this game. That is another stolen point to Sweden. Look at that perfect line on that stone. Passes right over the centre, but it needed to stop. And that's disappointment for Durcek. Sweden still being highly consistent. Just doing the simple things very well right here. And it is Sweden who lead Slovakia after 3 ends, 3-0. It is Sweden leading 3-0 after 3 ends. They have stolen 1 point in each of the 3 ends. And Slovakia urgently need to find a bit of consistency here. Sweden just starting to sneak off into the lead. That lady on your screen, Kiki Ulander, she's not making many mistakes out there. She is setting up the rest of her teammates so well. She will have been asked for exactly the same. Let's just put reds towards the centre. Easy stuff for the Swedes. Put reds towards the centre. And it's really Slovakia who now have to start taking a little bit more of a risk, playing more aggressive stuff. They can't let Sweden get too much further away here. We're approaching the halfway turn at the 4th end. There will be a half-time break after this end. That's a chance to talk with the coaches, with the rest of your team. But really, the only thing to say to Slovakia at the moment is that they need to find consistency here. That's more like it. Everyone having a look at that stone as well. That could be a place where Sweden wants to know if that stone is touching the rings. They could ask the official to come measure it, please, with the 6-foot measure. And having a good look at it. Leo Pettersson Dahl.
Kom igen nu.
And from the call, it looks like potentially that yellow is touching. Why is that important? Well, if the yellow is touching the rings, that means it's counted as being in the rings. And that means, importantly, it is not protected by free guard zone. If it's not touching the rings, it is protected by free guard zone, and Sweden would not be allowed to do this. They would not be allowed to remove that stone. Therefore, that yellow must just have slipped on a millimetre too far. That yellow just touching the very edge of the rings. And that means Sweden can remove it from play. Not protected by free guard zone. Good work again from Kiki Ulander. Slovakia, they are on 3 wins just now. They have 3 sessions left, including this one. So if they want to get to the magic 6 wins, they need to win this game and win their remaining 2. That's better from Monika Kunkelova. But she may have wanted that out front to be protected by free guard zone. You can see Sweden immediately calling to try to remove that yellow. And that would not be possible if the yellow was ahead of the rings in the free guard zone. Marcus Holm just about catching enough, yep, of that yellow, and yep, that touched the bumper, so we will see one of our ice player assistants just come remove that stone from play. Yeah, just catching enough. He doesn't need his red to hang around. The easiest way to prevent your opposition scoring is to just remove their stones. No yellows equals no points. Fans have brought really a magical atmosphere with them all week. It's such a lovely stadium. There may even be a few tickets left. If you want to come to Cortina, come join us here at the Cortina Curling Olympic Stadium. It's a wonderful atmosphere in this big old wooden built stadium. It was built originally for the 1956 Olympic Winter Games. We didn't have curling in the 1956 Games. Obviously, we've corrected that mistake now. And very much the home of curling here at the Paralympic and Olympic Winter Games. Sweden relentless out there. Slovakia need to weather this storm. They need to keep confident. That's critical in this kind of situation. We've all been in this situation where you're just not quite finding your form and your opposition are. And really critical is to just take it stone by stone. Important is to not let your heads go down, not lose confidence. The score is only 3-0. It's far from a game over. And that's what you need to remember, just stone by stone, step by step. That wasn't quite what Slovakia wanted. They wanted to slip in behind those reds, but that's now a yellow out front. That's another stone they can use later. And so for plan B, that's a good result.
Bra!
You can see in your picture Ronnie Persson and some of the other players, they have a handle or a grip that they attach to their chair for playing. But if you're a wheelchair user, or you have a friend who is, or colleague who wants to try, when you're just starting, you don't need any adjustment to your day-to-day chair. You don't need your own delivery stick. These guys have their own delivery stick, which is adjustable. They can set it exactly how they like it, but if you want to try, you don't need a handle for stability or for gripping to throw, and the curling club, they have delivery sticks that you can use. So you can very easily get in touch with your local curling club or your federation, and they will point you in the right direction. And the good news is you don't even need a dedicated wheelchair curling club. There are dedicated wheelchair tournaments and wheelchair curling clubs. But I know a few folk, and they are the only wheelchair user at their curling club. And at the club level, everyone can play with everyone else. We have quite a big wheelchair curling division at the club where I play at home. And every time there's club league night or a weekend tournament or so, yeah, we always have wheelchair players either playing against everyone or in the same team as foot players. It's really very inclusive. I'm a foot player, I'm not a wheelchair user. But my team would not find it even noteworthy if I told them that maybe I wasn't available for a club game, and if I told them that one of our club colleagues was coming who happens to be a wheelchair player. This would not even be worthy of comment. They would just be very happy that our colleague was showing up to play for me. So it's really very inclusive. Don't need to feel shy. Even if there are no other wheelchair players at the club, you can still join. So all that talk of inclusivity. There has been a nice throw from Slovakia, finally getting a stone in behind cover. And finally, a miss from Sweden. Now you need to make the most of this, Slovakia. Finally, they have a stone in play. Finally, they got a miss from Sweden. And this is how you score points. You play a really nice shot, that yellow. Not easy to access there. It was in behind cover. Yeah, frustration for Ronnie Persson. This is how you score points. You want to set up situations that are too difficult for your opposition. You want to set up a situation and try to get a miss out of them. And Slovakia have finally got a miss out of Sweden. And again, for a plan B, that's found a decent spot, that yellow. He wanted it in behind the reds. It's in front of the reds instead, but it does further block the path to the yellow. That is still currently lying short. It's the yellow stone that's closest to centre just now. And that should boost confidence for Slovakia. Viljo Pettersson-Dahl, he will be delighted with his teammates. You learn when you're first starting curling, what we say, fourth thrower, all they should ever need to do is throw a guard, because your teammates have set up the end perfectly for you. And that man there, he's even going one better. He's just following that Slovakian stone in, making no mistake. That's always the danger if you have stones behind T-line. That's the horizontal line just underneath Radoslav Durich's brush. If your stone slips behind that T-line, there is always space for your opposition to sneak a stone in on top of it, and then they will be closer. The good news for Slovakia is that even with that nice shot from Pettersson-Dahl of Sweden, there is still space for Adrian Durcek to get another stone into play. This looks pretty nice from him. He just wants to keep curling, keep curling, keep curling, keep curling, keep curling. Decent effort. It doesn't quite find shot position. I think, yeah, that's red. It's still closest. It's just a little heavy, that throw, so the faster a stone is going, the less it will curl by the time it gets to the other end of a curling sheet. It will curl eventually if you had an infinitely long curling sheet.
Kom igen nu.
He's doing quite a lot of damage personally, Viljo Pettersson-Dahl. His teammates are setting up the ends very, very nicely, and he is really just twisting the knife, bunging stone after stone in towards the centre. It's another fine shot from the Swedish skipper. Final stone for him in this first half. Here it comes. It does slip behind T, but as we said, that it doesn't matter for Sweden at the moment. Sweden are +3. Even if they give up one yellow, and that's the maximum that can happen in this end, that's fine for them. Then the overall score would be 3-1. But it would be Sweden who has last stone advantage. Important here for Slovakia. They need to steady the ship a little bit here before taking half-time break. I think this is a bit heavy again, you know. This needs to curl. Needs to curl, needs to curl, needs to curl. Doesn't curl quite enough. And of course, these ends are beginning to get to a bit of a rhythm. Viljo Pettersson-Dahl making the most of his teammates' setup, really nailing his two shots, and Adrian Durcek just not quite as consistent, not quite finding exactly the same places, and that will be a steal of 1 red again to Sweden. So the game overall score starting to look a little bit like a binary code. 1-1-1-1, and that means the overall score going into the halfway mark is Sweden 4, Slovakia 0. There is Sweden's first half. Some pretty nice shooting from all the players there. We'll come to talk about the percentages again a bit later, but yeah, very consistent from them. And that's really serving them well. Slovakia struggling to find their best shots out there. They need to keep their confidence high. They'll be looking for encouragement from their coaches, and that reflected a bit in their accuracy percentages. Just a wee bit lower than Sweden. They're not quite putting the pressure on Sweden. And they need to tighten up in the second half.
Fendes, bra Magda!
9! Bra Magda!
Aj, to je náusko.
Here's the overview of the game then, of the first half. And everything coming up Sweden. Really just finding more consistency on both types of shot, a draw and a takeout. The draw landing in the house, in the rings. And the big story, that bottom row there, stolen ends. And Sweden just creeping away with this. Sometimes I describe this sort of game as getting one to death, and your opposition just keeps picking up one, and Sweden's starting to get a little bit ahead now of Slovakia. That's where we are. That's the Cortina Curling Olympic Stadium, which is a majestic old place. We had skating here when we still skated outdoors in 1956, but we have well and truly moved in for the past few weeks here at Paralympic Winter Games. The overall score, Sweden just starting to creep ahead there. Slovakia need to steady the ship. We want a bright start in the fifth end.
Vi
drar in!
Ja!
Oj, det är ganska lugnt. 20. Tio. 5. Ingen
Bra!
It will be Kiki Ulander who starts us off again in this fifth end.
Okay, okay.
Sweden have not yet had the last stone advantage. They just keep piling stones towards the centre.
Ska vi plussa den till 6 nästa gång?
Keep red stones lying around.
Ja, det tar sig.
And now is a good chance to discuss the player percentages. So we saw Kiki Ulander's percentage accuracy, 50-something% for the draws. And what is very important to always understand when we see these percentage accuracy, that system, the percentage, the statistical analysis and so, that is really based on foot players. And there are several reasons why the degree of difficulty for the same shot is higher in wheelchair curling. It always is.
Thank you, Monica.
It's higher for the wheelchair curlers, their degree of difficulty compared with foot players. So achieving the same percentage accuracy over a whole game for wheelchair players, it is harder than it is for foot players. And the most obvious reason that we quickly spot is because there are no sweepers in wheelchair curling. Once this stone is released, it's on its own. We do not have two sweepers to affect the line. Either try to hold the stone straight or encourage the stone to curl. They can't drag the stone an extra metre or two if the stone is slowing down a bit. And imagine how helpful that is when you're trying to be accurate. If you have two big sweepers to help drag your stone a bit further, to help control the line, well, it's much easier to be accurate. And there are another couple of factors as well. So we see all of the wheelchair players, they're using only upper body strength for all their throws. I'm a foot player, and almost all the power for my throws comes from leg drive, those big quad muscles. And that's not possible for the wheelchair users. They are using upper body strength for every shot, and that is an added degree of difficulty. And the final consistent challenge is, as we've seen the wheelchair throwers with the delivery stick, they release the stone in that one smooth forward movement. There's no backswing, there's no time to adjust your delivery. So when I use leg drive, I kick out of the hack. I need to release the stone by that thick green line, that's the hog line. But I have about 3 or 4 seconds between kicking out and must release the stone. So if I've either kicked out a bit fast or a bit slow or a bit wonky, I've got a few seconds to fix that, whereas the wheelchair players, they don't adjust their delivery. It's that one forward movement and that's it. So all of those small things, all of those add up. Every throw for wheelchair curlers, it is a higher degree of difficulty. And it's very important to keep that in mind when we see the percentage accuracy over the game. To achieve that high accuracy in terms of the percentage, it simply is harder for wheelchair players. And it's important to remember that, to not be taken in too much by the percentages. Of course, it's easier for me to achieve accuracy when I have two teammates sweeping. I can use leg drive for the power, and I can adjust myself while I'm throwing if I've come out a bit wonky. So of course it's easier for me to achieve higher accuracy, and that is critical to keep in mind when we're having such a discussion in the wheelchair game. And this is a bright start in the second half for Slovakia. 2 yellows in the centre.
Ja, slå ner den då först, eller? Ja, jag menar, träffar vi kan vi få någon annan liksom.
Very communicative, the Swedish team. They really support each other. They've been together a long time now. Their first Paralympic Winter Games was in 2018. And they even started this team, they were in the B division in World Wheelchair Championships. They won their way to the top group in the Worlds, and they have stayed there ever since. And they are such a solid unit, the Swedish team. And they typically have 2 players at either end. that is a luxury that you can have in
Niklas!
wheelchair curling.
Ja, det är bra, Mackan!
Bra! Härligt!
Snyggt!
In foot player curling,
Ja, det var ju alternativ.
typically you have people buzzing up and down the ice, sweeping or throwing or something. If you do want to discuss things, then you're eating up your time clock.
Jag hörde ingen fart där.
That is something that's maybe an advantage or a luxury in wheelchair curling, that you can always have one of your teammates hanging around to just talk strategy, encourage each other. That was a good throw from Marcus Holm for Sweden.
Ja, du.
He managed to pick off one of the yellows and create access to the centre. Yeah, we need to just keep doing the same thing here, Slovakia. Keep making sure that you've got 2 yellows in play. That's fine. It's not quite out-counting that red. But what's important is
Yes!
we need to have 2 yellows in the house. We can fix the angles and fix the positioning a bit later. That's an important tactical lesson as well. You don't have to be in a winning position at the end of every throw. If you're Slovakia, you need to be in a good position at the end of the last throw. So sometimes I even say that you're really using your 7 stones. All those 7 stones are really simply just setting the scene for the 8th stone, the 8th and final throw. That is when it's important.
Kändes bra.
Lite tajt.
Ja, jag tyckte det kändes ganska bra, Ronny. Men
Någon farten kanske. Niklas,
Niklas,
8!
det är bara farten, Ronny.
Det är farten!
Okej.
Niklas, 7.
That's a decent throw from Ronnie Persson. Same again, he manages to move that yellow off the forefoot. He doesn't remove it from play, but he does punch it back and he does leave an open path. But this is working better for Slovakia. They are managing to keep yellows in play. And that's important here. This is more like it. We need to play 8 good shots, one after the other. That's how you'll get points back. Imagine if Slovakia could fashion a 2 here. That would make the overall score 4-2, and all of a sudden the game would feel much happier from a Slovakian perspective. So just slipping on a little bit. It is still lying 2 yellow, but that hasn't found such a good spot. He really wanted that to stop right now. But that stone has just slipped on a little bit far, and those 2 yellows pretty close together, both behind T-line. And they are, unfortunately for Slovakia, providing a bit of a target for Sweden now. Ronnie Persson winds up his throwing arm.
Bra. Kanske kan ta dem istället.
8.
And throws a
Ja,
peach.
det är okej.
Det är bra. 8. Bra fart. Det är bra.
Nice work from Ronnie Persson. But finally, still some good stuff from Slovakia. It's still 1 yellow hanging around in scoring position, and Slovakia just need to keep doing this. They got away a little bit with the previous throw. Vladislav Durish will want to just make a small adjustment there. He wants to get a second yellow into play.
13-9.
And he would like it to not really be up close to the other yellow. That's more like it. That's nice. The further away your stones are from each other, then the harder it is to remove both of them in one throw. That's more like it. Radoslav Duric learning from his first stone. Just taking a little bit of weight off with the second. And he is rewarded with very nice stone position there. And finally, in this fifth end, let's see what Viljo Petersendal is made of. Finally asking the questions of him. And look at that game he's been having so far.
Bra!
Big weight from Petersendal, oh boy. He gets everything moving. Well, he's not just fancy when it comes to dropping a shot towards the centre. That stone coming in at pace and connecting with all the yellows. Two of them go out of play. The third one rolls to the back. Not celebrating yet. But a very fine throw from the Swedish skipper. Still chances though for Slovakia. There are guards out front to hide behind. That's the situation. There's plenty of space. A good throw here. Still set up Slovakia to score 2 points in this fifth end. They really need to score something though. They really can't let Sweden get any further ahead here. That's nice from Adrian Jurček. It's coming in pretty fast though. He wanted it to curl a little bit more. And just roll in behind cover. But first things first.
Kom igen, den har du. Hela vägen.
Bra!
No trouble for Viljo Petersendal, but an interesting situation he's left. That red coming at pace and just spinning out itself. There is still an opportunity for Slovakia to score too. That's the situation. That red just next to Radoslav Duric's brush, that's the red that's closest just now. But the second shot, the second closest, is the yellow on the right of our screen, on the right of the centre line. So if Adrian Jurček, if he can do pretty much the same here, he wants to just hit that red on the nose and sit there himself. That would be the ideal shot here.
Ako to vyzerá?
Myslím, že dobré.
Pretty nice so far. It looks pretty nice. Oh, that's terribly unlucky that he doesn't hang around, but it will be finally an important score of 1 yellow. And that's certainly much better stuff in this fifth end from Slovakia. We needed that stone to curl a little bit more so that it would also hang around his yellow. Yeah, bit of disappointment, but the good news for Slovakia is that finally they score one.
Japp.
Bra Rontan.
Steady the ship a bit.
Lugnt och med tå.
Bra
The score
Mackan.
after the fifth end is now Sweden 4, Slovakia 1.
Mellanmjölksomgång här kändes det. Ja, men det är det. Fan, nu steppade vi upp. Nu är det 3
Ja.
omgångar kvar.
Ja,
Det är bra.
Poäng i varje målet. Jag menar 0-omgång är bra.
ja, gå nu.
Det är bra.
Nej.
So Slovakia on the board after a much better, consistent performance in the fifth end. In the sixth end, the score is Sweden 4, Slovakia 1. So for the first time then in this game, it will be Sweden who has hammer. They have last stone, the little hammer graphic, now next to the Swedish flag. Changes our objectives then in the sixth end.
Ja,
It's kind of a double objective now.
Kom igen, Kiki.
ja då, men den kändes bättre
From
nu.
Slovakia's perspective, they still can't really afford to let Sweden get any further ahead. A score of
Hit ut, ja.
1 maybe to Sweden here in the sixth end. Even that,
Börja greppa nu ändå.
it's really putting the game
Niklas, kom ut.
quite
Ja, men
far
det är bra,
away
Kiki.
from Slovakia. So yeah, Slovakia,
Det är bra.
they would like to get points in this end as well. They will need to steal points. They don't have last stone. And they want to prevent Sweden getting more points. That means that Slovakia, they need to adopt aggressive tactics. Removing Swedish stones, that's not really going to help them. That will simply limit Sweden, but it won't help them get more points on the board. Therefore, we will see Slovakia, they need to play aggressively from here on. We're in the sixth end out of 8. And Slovakia need to find 3 points in these final 3 ends.
Plus på femman.
That's better from Monika Kunkelova. That stone is protected by free guard zone. Her first throw just slipping into the rings. And easily removed by Kiki Ulander.
Det är bra.
But that's better from Kunkelova. Sweden not allowed to remove that guard out of play. And that's nice from Ulander.
Det är bra, Kiki.
She's having a really strong game.
Mycket bra.
This very strong Swedish performance is directly correlated with that lady on your screen having a very, very steady game at lead. We said then that Slovakia, they have a double-barreled objective. They can't let Sweden get further ahead here. They really don't want to give up any more red points. But on the other hand, if they just remove red stones, that's not going to be enough. They need to get some yellow points as well. And that's why we see Slovakia attacking the centre. They can't just be defensive here. They could remove that Swedish stone. That would work. But that doesn't really help Slovakia. That prevents Sweden scoring. It doesn't help Slovakia score, and that's why we see the Slovakian team doing exactly the right thing. They have a stone protected by free guard zone, and second thrower Karol Jandl just using that guard and try to slip a stone in behind.
Jag med.
Marcus Olm having a really good game.
Men det är rätt marginal, Mackan. Bra.
8-7,
that's fine.
bra Mackan!
The original call was, I think, to go for the shot stone, the one that's right on the centre, but definitely the tolerance is to remove the guard. Force Slovakia to try to put the guard back on very accurately again. If it was Slovakia who were leading now, you would see them simply remove that Swedish stone. But Slovakia, they need points here as well. They have no choice but to play aggressive tactics, and that means really attacking the centre. Get to the centre first. Try and block the path for Sweden. That is a wonderful throw from Karol Jandl. Excellent end for him. Very nice. Look how beautifully lined up those yellows are. And again, remember that achieving that level of accuracy in wheelchair curling, it's much more difficult than in foot curling.
Okay. Ja, men.
This is much better from Slovakia in the second half. Really found more consistency.
Den är uttryckt den där.
Ja, den är uttryckt.
The sixth then setting up well for them. You just need to keep doing the same thing. They have a stone in the centre. They need to keep putting a guard out front, try and block access to that yellow right on the pin.
Aiuto Eva, trošku menej.
Both teams have a good amount of time left on their time clock. You can see the clocks on the scoreboard next to their flag. So both teams managing their time well. Both teams do still have a 1 minute timeout. They can call for their coach to come down. When they call a timeout, then the coach comes down from the coaching bench to offer advice. Neither team has used that timeout yet. This is working much better for Slovakia in the second half of the game. They must have had a positive team talk at half-time, encourage each other, keep going. Yeah, I would go this way. And then same idea. The original call is, let's remove this stone out front, let's remove the guard, make a path to centre. But if Ronnie Persson is a little bit wide of the brush, so if he throws the stone not directly at the brush, but a little bit outside, if he gets past the guard, then he'll pick off the stone behind it.
Något!
Just like that. The danger stone is actually still the guard. That is a nice throw from Ronnie Persson. Maybe counterintuitively, that is more of a plan B, because that guard out front is just perfect. It is splitting that centre line. And now Slovakia have a chance to hide a stone even better behind it. That's fine for Slovakia. Perfect. Would have been to punch that yellow just a little bit further forward. The danger is that those two yellows are currently rather close together. The closer together your stones are, the easier it is to remove them with just one stone, one throw.
Ja. Går det på en gång eller?
Stone coming in hot.
8-6. Bra Ronny, 8-6.
Lucky you, Slovakia, that just slipped by. Not taking off both yellows.
8-5 hade jag.
Ja, men det är bra. Då har jag fått kartan i alla fall.
Just slipping past in front of the yellow. A millimetre more. You probably have picked off the pair of them. And again, Slovakia need to use these chances now. The ice is so curly that even though that stone is in the rings, you can still pretty much use it as a guard. You have that stone out front, and Adrian Durcek being asked to draw a stone in behind it, really close to that T line, the horizontal thin line. Slovakia will be looking for good separation for their stones so that a double takeout is harder. The further away your stones are from each other, the good separation, the tougher it is for your opposition to remove both in one throw. This looks nice from Durcek. Pushing your own stone back, that works too. And so a similar result than the previous stone. Line was very nice. Vicky helpfully showing the skipper the angle, but yeah, as we said, both teams have plenty of time on their time clock, and he just wants to really see what's the situation for himself.
Okej. Vi kan spela på den här om du vill.
Ska vi testa det?
Ja, vill du komma härifrån eller?
Nej.
Där.
Similar result for Slovakia on that throw. Yellow's in a good position, but a little bit too close together. And that brings a bit of danger for a double takeout.
Nej, vi spelar från det hållet.
Spelar du härifrån?
Ja, jag spelar 8. Curlar jag över så ligger jag på första tunn.
Bra!
Målen nästan att gömma sig bakom den.
Ja, men kommer upp. Du vill träffen på högersidan.
Ja, lite.
Kommer upp där med den isen.
Ja, det tror jag. Eller?
Peter Sandal enjoying a spectacularly accurate game.
Ja, okej.
Ja, kom igen.
Tror på isen då.
Ja. Spela Niklas!
Kom igen då.
Ska jag öka lite?
Ja, bra.
Där eller?
Ja.
Niklas.
Bra!
Kom igen.
Bra.
So much discussion on this shot. That's a fine throw from the Swedish skipper.
Bra fart. Full sten, Billy.
It looks like they decided they didn't want to attempt the double takeout. You don't have to, obviously. Important was to remove one of those yellows and get the red hanging around, which he has.
David.
Ideally, he actually wanted to roll more towards the left of our screen, in behind that guard. But whatever Slovakia does with their final throw here, there will still be space and chances for Sweden to score in the 6th end. Like we said, though, critical is that Slovakia can limit Sweden's scoring opportunities. Couldn't have done much better with that throw, Adrian Durček. And this has been a fairly successful end, actually, from Slovakia. They are lying to yellow. Maximum Sweden can get here is 1 point. They don't really want Sweden to get any further ahead. All you can do is give yourself a chance. So Sweden with the last stone advantage, they have the final say in this end. Slovakia will be saying a little prayer to the curling gods and hoping that Viljo Petersendal does not make double takeout here. And he hasn't. That is a little gift for Slovakia. A strong 6th end from them. All they can do is set themselves up. All they can do is try to get a mistake from Sweden, and finally they have. That red not curling enough to pick off both yellows. Yeah, frustration for Viljo Petersendal. He's had a storming game so far, but that is finally a steal of 1 point to Slovakia. They are bridging this gap. It is Sweden 4, Slovakia 2 after 6 ends. Here's the story then. A much better second half. Slovakia were struggling to string 8 good shots together in the first half, but they've been much brighter in the second half. And we are now heading into the 7th out of 8 ends. If you're Slovakia then, same again, please, in the 7th end. That was well worked by them. They worked very hard to get themselves into the position where they could steal a point. So if there was a miss with the last stone from Sweden, then Slovakia were in the position to get a point instead, and they did that. And they will want exactly the same. They now need 2 points to bridge this gap. And we have 2 ends left. If scores are tied after 8 ends or regulation time, we will play 1 extra end. We must have a winner out there. In some competitions in the round robin stage, it's okay to finish with a draw. Here at Paralympic Winter Games, the system of play is that we must have a winner. You get 1 point if you win a game, no points if you lose. And that's why we simply say that Sweden are on 4 wins. That's it. They have 4 points. Doesn't matter if that win came from a real demolition job or if it came from the final throw of an extra end. It's simply a win or a loss. That's it. And at the moment, I think Slovakia, they still need to just think stone by stone. But Slovakia, yeah, important that they don't lose any more points. They could really do with stealing a point here in the 7th. And then going all out to try to steal points again in the 8th. And if possible, take their chance in an extra end.
Bra Kiki! Härliga stenar!
Ty budeš kratší, môžeš aj kúsť, hej?
Same tactics then for Slovakia in the 7th end. They do not have last stone, and we've said that it is important that they need to prevent Sweden from scoring. And as we've spoken about already, there are 2 ways of preventing your opposition from scoring. The first way is to remove Swedish stones. No Swedish stones equals no Swedish points. Because we're late in the game now, we're in the 7th end out of 8. Simply preventing Sweden from scoring, that's not enough for Slovakia anymore. They also need to grab points back. And that's why we see Slovakia ignoring those Swedish stones. Doesn't really help them to remove those Swedish stones only. They need to get yellows in play as well. Therefore, we see the more aggressive tactic from Slovakia. They put guards out front. They need to get stones in behind.
Härlig Mackan! Bra sten!
Precis som du sa.
En kvar.
Bra William.
Har du sett den lika fint? Har du gjort det?
Trinas, Zachácku. Donútra hráme.
Finely poised the second 7th end. Sweden, as usual, thanks to Kiki Ulander. They have 2 red stones in play. That's putting a little bit of pressure on Slovakia. But Slovakia can't afford to just neutralise those reds. They can't afford to just take them out of play. They need to attack better from here. And that is fine from Karol Jandl. Slovakia will also be thinking about what's the tolerance, what's plan B if the shot isn't perfect. So the perfect shot for Karol Jandl was wrapping a yellow behind the 2 guards out front. But a 3rd stone out front there, that's fine. A stone too long would go through the back, and then the stone's out of play. You can't use it again. So this is definitely the better plan B, is just keep yellow stones in front. You just need to get 1 good stone in behind that to make Sweden's life difficult.
Bra Mackan.
And Sweden realising the danger all those yellows out front are posing. Such an improved performance from Slovakia in the second half. Now they're the ones asking the questions of Sweden. They have yellow guards out front. They're working to get a yellow stone in behind that cover. It worked for them in the sixth end. They left themselves set up in a position to score if the final throw from Sweden went wrong. And it was a half shot they got from Sweden. This needs to stay. It does. Oh, I think it may even have spun itself right at the end there, spun itself back into scoring position actually. Right, before you all say, hang on a minute, you told us that Slovakia doesn't want to remove red stones. You are right, I did say something along that line. What we could see was Slovakia using those red stones to still get their own yellow stones into play. That's the important part. This is a path we have not used very much. Far away from the centre, towards the side of the sheet. Stone curling a bit too much. And now very much advantage Slovakia. Yeah, Ronnie Persson. He was aiming for the yellow at the back, actually, not those yellows out front. But he just clips the yellows out front on the way past, and he has spun those into a nice position here. Certainly yellow lying 1. I think they're lying 2. How do they keep the pressure on here?
Máme čo, 2?
Jeden.
Prosím?
Asi jeden iba, ten červený bude lepší.
A prečo nestrieľate to červené?
Strieľať to nechcem.
Here's the situation. Slovakia, they want to continue using those stones out front, the guards out front. Get another Slovakian counter in behind them. Remember, objectives for Slovakia twofold in this seventh end. They need to prevent Sweden scoring, and they need to get a point or two themselves. And that's okay. That's another yellow out front. Punches the red slightly, but doesn't affect his own yellows in the rings. So not perfect, but that's found a good spot, that stone.
Niklas. Okay. Fortsätt. Här är den som går lite rakt.
Men det borde vara där ändå, va? Inne. Bra.
Great shot from Ronnie Persson. Neutralising one of those dangerous yellows. Before and after. Very nice throw from him. Red onto yellow. The red hanging around, the yellow popping out of play. Yeah, he's happy with that one. Sweden's objective here in the 7th end. Simple in theory. They just want to score something, even a score of 1 here for Sweden. That would make the overall score 5-2. And with 1 end left, that would really be advantage Sweden from there. So yeah, Sweden just need to score something. And at the moment, that is now a red in scoring position. What I fancy that Slovakia can see most, if not all, of that red. Adrian Durček, the newest member of the Slovakian team, his first Paralympic Winter Games, and having a super debut. Nice confident player. Started the competition at 2nd and now throwing 4th. And that is a confident throw from him, lovely shot. I always say that throwing 4th stone, it is not for everyone. It's not so much that the shots are more difficult, it's not so much that you need your best player at 4th. What is critical to understand about 4th throw is that that's it. There are no teammates coming after you. If you don't get it right, everyone will see it. And that's what's different about throwing 4th versus throwing 1, 2 or 3. It's a particular person, a particular mentality who can manage that pressure. It's much more all or nothing 4th throw. Some people can do it, they're comfortable there, and most people honestly are not. I know plenty of top class players who do not want or enjoy playing 4th because it's hard. Boy, well, the 7th end is shaping up to potentially be decisive. 2 stones left and a bunch of stones now hanging around. So that yellow in the centre, that goes out of play. The shooter from Viljo Petersendal, that is hanging around.
Zadni.
And what does Slovakia do from here?
Prvý, druhý, tretí.
Okay.
It looked like Radoslav Duriš was indicating that the red that just appeared from Viljo Petersendal, it looks like he is saying that that's the shot stone, that's closest to centre, so the furthest left of the red stones there. So first things first, Slovakia need to be out counting that stone. They can either remove it or they could play another yellow stone directly in behind cover. And a big shot here. 2 dangerous Swedish stones lying around if anything goes wrong. But as we said, Slovakia have no choice. They are running out of ends to get points back. They have no choice but to play aggressive. That means they have to leave stones lying around. Oh, and that's a pity for Slovakia. But I think the I think it was the back red, actually, that was lying short. From our angle here, certainly looks like it is the yellow there. That's closest to centre. Yeah, my mistake, it was the back red that was shot. So actually they wanted that stone to curl a little more. They really wanted that yellow to hang around. Yeah, that's a pity. All they can do is set themselves up with a chance, Slovakia. It is Sweden who have the final say with their last stone here. Nice smooth release from the Swedish skipper. He does remove that yellow. He doesn't really mind rolling out, because there is that one red on the right of our screen. That is going to get a point for Sweden. That's exactly what we said they needed to do in the 7th end. Important was to remove that yellow. That was closer than the red. Not anymore. It is 1 point to red. Yeah, he looks frustrated with himself that he didn't get to give himself a slightly bigger cushion, but that is a fine situation if you are Sweden going into the 8th end. They lead Slovakia 5-2. That's the situation. We are going into the 8th. Will it be the final end? It is Sweden leading 5-2.
Kändes okej.
Advantage Sweden in this 8th end. It is Slovakia who have last stone advantage, but Sweden plus 3 points, and at this level very difficult to get 3 points. Slovakia needing 3 just to keep the game going, just to get to an extra end. Big throws for Monika Kunkelova. Slovakia must take advantage of free guard zone. That means that Sweden would not be allowed to remove guards from play. That stone needs to come to rest. That's good for Monika Kunkelova.
Tänk på att 5:an är plus!
4 räcker va?
Okej.
Sweden's objective in this 8th end, very simple. We need to lose fewer than 3 points. And the easiest way of achieving that is to remove opponent stones, and that's why it is critical that Slovakia place their stones in that free guard zone where they're protected for 5 stones. Sweden cannot remove them immediately, otherwise they certainly would. Removing opponent stones, the more conservative, the easier way of preventing them from scoring. That is lovely throws again from Kiki Ulander. If Slovakia want to get any points here in this 8th end, at some point they will have to do something about those 2 reds just thrown by that lady on your screen. This looks nice from Monika Kunkelova. That's a great throw from her. Very nice. Why is that a good throw? It doesn't seem to help anything. It's still 2 reds that are closest. The reason that is a good throw is because, as we said, Slovakia, they need to keep stones in play here. They don't want to make it easy for Sweden to remove their stones. That's what Sweden wants to do. And that yellow, a little bit tricky to remove. 2 reds right behind it. Slovakia could have thrown that stone much harder and just remove both reds, but that wouldn't help them. Then Sweden would simply remove their stone again. And that's why that was a lovely throw from Monika Kunkelova. Ooh, and a late mistake here from Sweden. Unusual for a team at this stage to throw a stone short, but yeah, that stone not reaching the green line, therefore not being in play, and our ice player assistant just removing it. Slovakia have wisely called timeout. Their coach is down for a 1-minute interaction. Let's see what she has to say.
Ten červen. Ako, potrebuješ tam dostať niekde kamene. Ako, budú to oni určite strieľať. Ten gard. Takže potrebuješ si niekde vytvoriť tam proste, keď aj skončíš, že pôjdeš zvonky a zostaneš buď na predných modrých, ako nejaký kvázi gard alebo niečo. Potrebuješ tam nejak dostať ten kameň. A zároveň tam hýbať aj s tými červenými ideálne, tým ďalším kameňmi.
Tak tam pôjdeme, Karol. A keby šuchovať ten žltý a dal ho na centrálne...
To nám až tak nevadí, áno.
To bolo super.
Hej.
Nie, vedročko tam hrať.
Ja.
Zvon.
Hej.
Kde to chceš? Koľko? 13? 12,5?
No, 12,5 asi. Len smer, Karol hlavne. Tu to musíš hodiť.
Pozri, ponahlas.
With a few seconds left, you can see the timeout clock ticking down on the scoreboard behind the players there. But the objective hasn't changed. Slovakia needs to generate somehow 3 points, and the most likely path to success to generate 3 points is at this stage, early in the end, is to keep stones in play. They're quite happy to have those reds still hanging around behind yellow stones. That makes it harder for Sweden to remove yellow stones.
Gard.
Finish. 12-8.
It's not quite what they wanted from Slovakia. But again, a stone that's too long at this stage, that doesn't help at all. That's a stone that they can't use anymore. Whereas stones out front, that's a stone you can use later. This is an interesting one. Sweden could take a run at that yellow in the front of house in the 8-foot circle. That's the white one. And they're not, because as we said, there are 2 reds behind it, just ready to catch that yellow on the way through. So this is a very aggressive call actually from Sweden. Sweden just saying, well, you know what, we've got 2 stones in the centre. We're just going to put a guard in front of those and leave Slovakia with the difficult shots, leave Slovakia to try and do the work. But that is a compliment to Slovakia's setup here. That's Sweden thinking, no, we can't really get to that yellow to remove it from play. We shall need to block access instead, and that is compliments to Slovakia for good setup play here. That's a cracker. And Karol Jandl, thumbs up from his teammates there. Whoa, he's squeaking around that front yellow. That's a peach of a shot. Well, if Slovakia want to grab 3 points here and take this to an extra end, that's how you're going to do it. This is building nicely for Slovakia. It's still the red that's closest to centre, but Sweden seeing plenty of danger with a whole heap of yellows now dangerously poised out front to just punch back onto that red, remove it from play, lie lots of yellows. Oh boy.
Niklas, 3!
That was a hard shot for Sweden. Third thrower, Ronnie Persson. And again, that is compliments to Slovakia for some excellent setup play. Not quite finding that same path as Karol Jandl. And that red is now getting a little bit lonely looking. I think now is the time to do something about that red.
Skúsim 10, keď nie, tak posuniem tam ten predný. A bude 10-5, poďme takým pomalším.
Probably can't see all of that red stone, but certainly over half, probably 2/3 or 3/4. And now is your chance to just pop it out of play. That's the view. So yeah, about 3/4 we can see. Now is the chance to just pop that through the back. You will be lying all the yellows. And then these final 3 Swedish stones, goodness me, they will need to move a whole heap of granite. Ooh, that stone catching the curl. For a plan B, that's not too bad. You have 1 red towards the centre and fully 5 yellows. Oh, I would definitely call a timeout. Really, yeah, you don't want a guard here. I thought for a second he was calling a guard. That is absolutely not the right shot. You need to use your 3 remaining stones to remove as many yellows as you can and leave your own reds lying around. Here comes Peter Narup on his way. Now coaching the wheelchair team, and what a decorated career he's had. Lead thrower with the legendary Peter Lindholm's rink. He has seen all these situations before. I'm sure he will have good words of advice here.
Efter den här nu. Antingen så försöker vi spela in en sten någonstans. Men jag menar, det är lite svårt. Vi kan ju inte garda den utsidan och vi kan inte garda. Den kommer ju finnas hur den gör. Så då är jag inte så inne på det, utan någon
20 kvar.
Vill ha dubbel på 1:an och 4 och vicka över kanske?
Ja, det är nästan det jag tror.
Ja.
Spelare, Niklas. Här har du då nu, Niklas.
Det här är den raka.
Linan, va?
Ja.
He turned that up then, saying, yes, for goodness sakes, get rid of yellows, please. But also important here, that red being set up by Ronnie Persson. We need this red to lie around as well, actually. Otherwise, Slovakia are going to pop that red. Currently in the circles, they will pop that through and suddenly be lying a hat full. So not like that, really. He's got rid of one yellow, that's important. But that red is now wide open. Of course, what a finish this would be. If they've really been chasing the game for 8 out of 8 ends, Slovakia, but all of a sudden they've played the best end of this game, and all of a sudden it is Sweden that's in trouble here. They're going to need a bit of magic from their skipper with his 2 shots. That red now wide open. And they're going to be facing a heap of yellows. Lucky you, Sweden. That's thrown over curling. You still have a red in play.
Niklas!
Ja, spela härifrån!
Ja.
Kom igen nu, den har du. Niklas.
Bra! Niklas, ett härligt miljobb!
They need the steadying influence of Viljo Petersen-Dahl for the next 5 minutes or so. And Petersen-Dahl delivering. Critical that that red hangs around. Is there a double takeout available on the reds? Yeah, really after being in control this whole game, Sweden. Slovakia having superb end here in the 8th. Huge opportunity for Adrian Durček. I'm not sure the double goes. I think the left-hand red, I think that just pops onto the yellow next to it. Let's see. He just gets the one, actually. That's fine, though, for Adrian Durček. So important is look at all those yellows lying around.
Yes.
Yeah, that yellow from Durček just over curling a little bit. I'm not convinced the double takeout went anyway. I think there wasn't enough space for it. And oh boy, do we need another steady throw. Reassuring arm from Marcus Holm. He's got plenty of time. Gosh. that, that red. That has just rolled. What, 4 or 5 centimetres too far. Stop, stop, stop. But it doesn't. And remarkably, Slovakia have a throw to win here. Yeah, you don't have a lot of time though, Slovakia. You need to get on with this. I wonder if that will save Sweden here. Just that Slovakia don't have a lot of time to settle on the stone. Are they a little bit rushed? Oh, he's not sure about it. Needs to stay there, needs to stay on that line. Oh, gosh. Everybody holding their breath there to see how the final constellation looked there. What a thriller. Golly, out of nowhere, really. Slovakia just stuck to their plan, step by step, stone by stone. They had a near perfect 8th end. A brave effort from Adrian Durček. And a huge sigh of relief from Sweden. Yeah, that stone over curling by about 5 millimeters only. Oh, look at the emotions. It's a good throw. It just over curls. Oh, it's 2 yellows. Huge let off for Sweden. I thought this would be a good game. Both these teams made semi-finals at Paralympic Winter Games last time in Beijing, but it is Sweden who get the win here in the round robin. They go to 5 wins. Slovakia stay on 3. Slovakia's path to qualify for semi-finals a bit complicated now, but Sweden really getting very close to that semi-final position. Yeah, brave effort from Slovakia. What a fight back. Peter Narrett, the coach, surely breathing a bit of a sigh of relief as well. I don't speak Swedish, but I imagine he came on for the timeout and said something along the lines of, for goodness sake, get rid of those yellows. Yeah, look at those shooting percentages. Really outstanding. As we said, achieving accuracy in wheelchair is more difficult. And Sweden really out-shooting their Slovakian counterparts all game. But Slovakia finally having a shot that could have got a huge score of 4 and snatched a victory from the jaws of defeat. And sometimes that happens. But it is Sweden who go home with the victory today.
Wow. To tvoje. Ale ty si mi ukazoval.
Lepšie je ten krajný náš.
Ja neviem vôbec.
There is the game summary. And yeah, like everything favouring Sweden, but good for you, Slovakia. They really stuck to their task, stone by stone. They were really making use of every single stone, and of course they got themselves into the chance to snatch the game away from Sweden. And Sweden will be very relieved to come away with the victory there. They played very well. Got themselves into quite the muddle in that 8th end, but that's the situation. We are closing in on semi-final places. 2 teams already qualified. Sweden alone in third place now. They are knocking on that door for a semi-final place for the second time in a row here at Paralympic Winter Games. We have 3 more sessions to go. 3 more games in this round robin. And then it will be semi-final time. Yeah, big relief for Sweden. That win today moves them to third place on 5 wins. Two semi-finalists from previous Paralympic Winter Games in 2022 going head-to-head today. Sweden in control for really the whole game until the 8th end. Slovakia putting up an astonishing fight back, but finally it is Sweden who will breathe a sigh of relief. They get the win today. They move to 5 wins. Slovakia stay on 3 wins. Semi-finals are beckoning.